Hello and welcome to the Roundtable Podcast. My name is Shogun. Joining me again today is my good friend Raphie, and we are doing our third brainstorming and script writing and storyboarding session for the upcoming Roundtable conspiracy theory mystery film, which is getting a lot of momentum and interest for good reason. So without further ado, make sure you join us on the Roundtable Discord server. We record every day at 8 p.m. Central and at other times as well. Upcoming events can be found in hashtag announcements, and hundreds of great past podcasts can be found in the hashtag RT podcast channel. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe to all 4 of our unique channels. They all have different and wonderful episodes. That being said, welcome, Raphie. Thanks for joining me again.
Thanks for having me again. Thanks for doing this in the first place. I'm very excited to get our script finished here, hopefully. So in the meantime, since our last meeting, I've basically transcribed the entire one of our second podcasts on top of the pre-existing script that I had on a Google Docs document. After that, I've ran through it scene by scene and reworked the scenes to sort of flow better between one and another. There's a couple places that I need a little bit of filling in. There's a couple places that I like your opinions on. So I guess if I could just do a quick recap of the film in the order that I have here, and then we could walk through the scene by scene analysis.
Sounds good.
All right. So what I have is in a bit of a different order than we had before. So basically, I joined the chat, Wandering Library calls me. I join the chat, I meet you, and Wandering Library is already in the chat talking about how he's being gang stalked and that there's stuff wrong with the server or something. I'll go into that more, but so then he calls me and he tells me to leave the server, but then he's talking about paranoid stuff related to gang stalking that my character doesn't really understand, so I don't take it in fully, and then he gets a knock on the door. Oh, fuck, I have to go. He hangs up. A day later, my character notices some weird images on their phone, and they wonder if it's something that's wrong with the Discord or something related like that. So then, in desperation for answers regarding what's happening now in my real life, I actually go back to the Discord when potentially my character wouldn't really have a reason otherwise to. So they go back into the voice chat and they actually meet NSA, who's a mod who seems actually honest, and they have a conversation about aliens and gang stalking. But NSA kind of can tell that things are beginning to happen to my character. And so he starts to sort of tell me the truth, but then your character kind of joins out of nowhere, like sort of like he knew that we were talking about something, right? And then basically NSA shuts up. So then, okay, so then I end up asking a couple more questions. You act a little odd, but then you leave, and then I ask a couple more questions, and then I end up in the dungeon. So then I come back, Twilight Speak. At the peak of the Twilight Speak, I get a message from Ashley, and then we call and she flirts with me, and then this comforts my character, and like I accept when she asks if we want to like e-date. That call calms me down from the stuff that was happening in my real life and in the Discord, so now I actually like don't feel that scared. So I join the next day and I share my experience with NSA. But then Tech joins and we learn the lore about him. So he joins and then people quiet down, then he leaves. But then you announce a server meeting. So this is how we actually insert the Shogun having a dualistic genius and manic breakdown thing. So you announce like a promptu server meeting, and then we go into it, and then like you're having a crazy server meeting. And then you also announce to be ready for the upcoming Church of Camelot meeting. Then we're going to need another scene in between these. Then Raphie's character calls Ashley and tries to talk about the weird stuff that's been happening, but they start flirting, and at the end of the scene, she seems genuinely interested in him, and she kind of says like how great the server is and that there's something secret there. So yeah, and then there's another world-building VC scene, and then Shogun or Raphie are left in a room together with the very shady overtones, and then my character gets ranked up and then asked to record the podcast, the first one, which will be the Church of Camelot meeting, And then there's the and then before that scene, there's a world building scene that has the Satanist build up or the payoff for the gang stalkers, and then the Satanist build up. And then the scene after that will have the Satanist payoff. Then we'll have the Doomsday Cult meeting. Then I'll ask NSA what that was about. Then there'll be a private mod VC whenever I ask him those questions. After that, Ashley calls me to recruit me. I go back to the mentor, and NSA begs me not to sell out. I have the final meeting where you actually asked me to join, cut to black. And then we fade back in, and my character isn't like introducing a new member the same as I was in the beginning. And then at the end, I was thinking, and this is something we can go in more later, but I was thinking there could be like an alien in my room that's like watching over me. And then we kind of cut to his internal thoughts, and the alien's like, will infiltrate the Discord, like this paradise is over and like soon chaos will rule or something like that, to kind of like set up a possible sequel involving like ET interaction with the entire Discord. But yeah, so that's basically the scenes in the order that I've determined that they best work. So what do you feel about that?
Yeah, it sounds about right. Sounds pretty good.
Sweet. So do you want to walk back through it from the beginning to end, and I can see if you have anything that you'd like to add?
Sure.
Okay. Hi, Iris. Iris just showed up here.
I want to talk so bad. I'm trying not to interrupt.
Well, you can't start now.
No.
Okay.
Label.
I'm gonna have this pull 1 second. Okay, so I'll read what I actually have for joining the very first scene. So Raphie joins the chat and gets welcomed by Shogun. But Wandering Library is already in there having a conversation with Shogun, and like Wandering Library is pleading to Shogun to like stop something or make something change, but he's ignored by Shogun as you continue on with another person or something else going on. And then Raphie asks some questions about what that meant, but then you tell me, not to interrupt, and then or whatever. But then at that moment, like Wandering Library calls me. So as soon as I get as soon as he's in the voice chat and he hears that I'm questioning you too, he calls me to warn me. So how do you think about that beginning?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I got distracted.
So my character joins the voice chat, welcomed by you, but Wandering Library is already in there kind of pleading with you to like stop something or like stop work, like to not do something, but he's ignored by you. And then you kind of continue on with other things, talking to other people. But then I ask some questions about what that meant, and you tell me like not to interrupt or not to ask questions. And the like second or so, like that moment that I ask questions, Wandering Library calls me specifically, like just the moment that he realizes that I'm like also sort of new and not in on it. And that's when he calls me to warn me. So how do you think we could expand on this beginning, and what else would you like to have?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Sorry, I gotta stop looking at these hilarious quotes from the server and pay attention. So you're asking me how we can elaborate the first scene where Wandering Library is talking to me when you join in?
Yeah, exactly. So he's talking to you, and he's basically being like, Shogun, stop doing this. Like the TVs won't turn off. Like my camera's full of pictures that I didn't take. Like all this shit, and you're like, oh, like shut up. Like I don't know what you're talking about, or like, oh, 2 minutes. Like, and going back to like someone else's conversation, and then I'm kind of like, what was that? And then like you're like, hey, don't interrupt, because I was like, I interrupted or whatever. But that's also a way just to like move it past that. But the second I bring that up, Wandering Library calls me.
Yeah, that sounds good to me, man.
I think so. But I think we should have an intro sequence that kind of introduces like the movie and stuff. So do you have any ideas about that?
About what, sorry, dude?
An intro sequence? Are you playing Roblox?
No. An intro sequence before you join the server, you mean?
Yeah, something to show before I jump into that scene. Like it could be me. It could be like a different perspectives of me from like computer, like security cameras, like how I walk around my house at like 5 times 20 speed, or like it could be like a podcast intro. I don't know. It could be anything, but like just like a good way to start it to set the ominous tone.
Yeah, that might be a good idea. Yeah, that would establish that you're a person before you join the server, kind of thing. So, like, you know what I mean? There's something
Yeah,
to
like
that.
a first and foremost, but through this internet perspective. Yeah. All right.
I like it.
Yeah. So that's pretty good. So so then okay. So this is the second scene. So that's scene 1A. So there's scene 1A all the way to scene 1D, scene 2A all the way to scene 2 K, and then scene 3A to all the way to scene 3D. So 75% of the movie's in the second act, which is good. That's how you're supposed to write a movie. So this script looks really well, and the thing that we've actually written here flows together really well. So the second scene, 1B, picking up the private call, Wandering Library tells me to leave the server and to listen to his warning, but he's paranoid, talks, confuses Raphie, and he gets a knock on the door. Oh, fuck, I have to go, hangs up. So you said in the last podcast that you wanted this sequence to be a bit longer than we actually had written. So what would you like the whole sequence to like go through, like start to end? So he calls me and I'm kind of like, what do you want? Like, or why are you calling me? Or what were you saying in voice chat? And he just goes like, he just freaks out on me, kind of like starts like rambling all this stuff, saying kind of incoherent stuff that's like does make sense, but it's still kind of all over the place. But, or like, should he say like specific stuff that leads up to the rest of the plot? And if he does, what would those things be?
I mean, somewhat both, in the sense that everything, even when people are trying to explain things, always sounds crazy, especially if you're just hearing it for the first time. So what his specifically Wandering Library is going to say, I mean, I'm not totally in the headspace to actually write the lines right now, but basically he's going to warn you that something is not what it seems, that I'm not who I seem. He's going to make reference to an inner circle, probably not specifically use the term cult yet, because that'll put too fine a point on it when it develop that narrative over time. But I mean, the basic narratives generally either that I'm a police officer, I'm an intelligence agent, or I'm a shill of some or another group. It can be, sometimes I've been called a Zionist, a Freemason, blue blood, Satanist.
Oh, how about this?
Shogun,
Okay.
don't forget, you're a female to male tranny also.
Davis, mute your mic, please. Okay, Shogun, how about this? So also, like, maybe Wandering Library knows like everything. Like he's one of the main guys, and he's like one of the last ones left. And he knows all the theories about you, and everyone else who had theories about you that is like now gone, he's heard them all. So he calls me and he's like, Shogun is a Zionist. This guy like knew that because of this, and he does this because this guy, and now he's doing this to me, and I'm like the last one left, and then knock, knock. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, exactly. That's good. And also Wandering I chose for this role because he has this like great way of talking where he like has this like world weary, like cynical knowledge about shit. He should call me like an Illuminati dipshit at some point because he always says that. He always says his Illuminati dipshits.
Well, this is the place to get that out. What else should he say?
Well, I mean, I'll try and do a good Wandering Library, a bit of like, well, Shogun, you're gonna like this one. I can't do a good one, but he has this like, he's a good like hard bitten like world weary guy who knows too much kind of thing. It's actually
yeah.
It's kind of a shame to take him out of the story so early, but I still think he'd be pretty good for that role.
He can come back in the sequel.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying there. You could have him reiterate some of the theories that different people have about me, and even reference some of those people who indeed are no longer with us in the server, such as Eagle Eyes, who was the original Shogun conspiracy theorist. Before I was even Shogun, he was already on my ass.
So let's get some even more lore, because we want red flags and red herrings, right? So, like false flags and red herrings. So like, let's say like this other guy, Eagle Lord or whatever, like let's say Wandering Library is like Eagle Lord's like second, like he's his right hand man or whatever, like, and he was learning everything from him about you, and they were planning on like taking you down, but now it's like the end is nigh, and like he's like been backed up into a corner, and all fronts have been taken, and the troops are closing in, and he's like in voice chat with you at the beginning of the movie, just fucking pleading you to just stop and end this and just back off, and you're just like completely ignoring him, and he calls me just to like finally get his last warning out, and I just hardly even take it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and if we want to tie it back to one of the early conspiracy theories, Eagle Eyes came up with a pretty good one. This was back in the MK Ultra days. He believed that I was an art dealer named Daniel P. Barron, and that my brother was somebody called the Red Baron, and that I used the art sales to encode Zionist messages using Kabbalah and Gematria. I don't know if we'll necessarily be able to include that or want to include that, but that's just a fun piece. That was like one of the original theories.
Well, he can say that when he's ranting, when he's going through his stuff, for sure.
Yeah, you can throw reference to the art dealer.
Yeah. So he throws references to all these different things that you are for different reasons, the different people. He says all of the factions and shit that was going on and how it's all gone and it's like there's nothing left but you and like this like should he say like the words inner circle? I think it would be cool if he actually says the words inner circle in his in
circle. You know, he could say something like, you know, the server itself is all right, but it's the inner circle, something like that, you know. That's where there's secret rooms, secret things going on, secret plans, and yeah, some reference to, you know, me being a cop or an intelligence agent, as well as a social engineer or social researcher, social experiment. That's a term that NSA and other people like to say, that the round table is a social experiment, and he should also at some point use the term that it's a honeypot, an intelligence pot, because people say that all the time too.
Okay, so then he should also send me in a bit of the wrong direction too. So I think my character ends up getting after, like right after this experience with Wandering Library, like that kind of stuff starts. And I thought it would be very subtle to say like my character just starts finding like photos in their phone that they didn't take and messages on their phone that they didn't send, like subtle stuff like that they're like being gaslit around. I want that to happen right after, like not right after, but soon after Wandering Library calls Raphie. So what would be a way that Wandering Library could accidentally get Raphie gang stalked? Like send him a link or like tell him to like do something or like go to a different voice chat or like say a code, like, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, the way I would play that is hold off on the gang stalking aspect until after two things. One, we have NSA or one of our other gang stalking experts talk about it in the chat so that Raphie's character becomes aware of that concept, and also so that the audience becomes aware of that concept, right? So like we use NSA and his ranting diatribe or whatever to introduce Raphie and therefore the audience to the concept of gang stalking, what it is and how it works and why it's done and so forth. So that provides the context. And then secondarily, I think the gang stalking should start after the time when your character is thrown into the dungeon, right? So he gets thrown into the dungeon for asking questions about Wandering Library in the public chat and about Wandering Library said. That would be the reason why he starts getting targeted.
Okay, so he gets thrown in the dungeon.
A context, because like you were saying, people start treating him differently after that point, and there's like the Twilight speak and stuff like that. So if there was a reason why he would start being gang stalked, then it would be probably after that point, assuming that it's Shogun's inner circle group that is the one behind it.
Yeah. So, okay, but then why does my character join the voice chat again after joining it the first time and the second time? Like, we need a scene. Because I have here, like, my character finds stuff on their phone that's weird, and then in desperation and caution, Raphie joins the chat again for answers and meets NSA, who seems, like, honest, and they have a conversation about alien and gang stalking. So that's the reason I even go back to the chat, and I bring up gang stalking, so that's the way I learn about it. So I felt like that flowed. So how would you rewrite that?
Well, I don't really know what you mean about, like, why you go back to the chat, right? You just get put in the dungeon for a little while, and then you get let out.
No, but I mean, like, after I come back to the chat, after the call with Wandering Library, like, why would my character want to come back to the server after that?
I wouldn't see why they wouldn't. I highly doubt anybody would get a call like that and then stop going to the server. If anything, it would just make people more interested. I wouldn't imagine your character or really anybody just like not going back after that. Just like,
yes.
People generally would just be more curious than anything. I don't really think that needs like a separate explanation. Like you're already You've already joined the server. You like the server. You just got this weird call, and for all you know, this guy's just crazy or whatever. But I wouldn't
Well,
see that.
the call happened a couple minutes after my first voice chat where I was welcomed by you, right? So that's the type of stuff I'm trying to work out.
Yeah, I'm just saying I don't really see a need for another layer of explanation there, because if it was me, or I think just about anybody, it would just be natural to stay on the server and continue to try and figure out what was going on. Like, not very many, maybe I'm different, but if I had joined the server or any server and I got a call like that, it by no means would I have even thought of just not going back to the server.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's not a big issue anyway. Okay, so then I come back to the chat after the Wandering Library call after a couple days. I think it would make sense for some subtle intelligence agency stuff and gang stalking stuff to start after the call with Wandering Library so that I have something to talk to NSA about, because otherwise there's no reason for me to listen to NSA when he tells me about this stuff. Or is it you want it to be the first time I hear about this stuff is when NSA tells me about it, then I get detained and then I know what it is? I mean, yeah, that makes sense too. Yeah. So since I see Wandering Library getting gang stalked, and then NSA tells me what it is, then I get detained, then I have Twilight Speak, then it starts, then I will know what it is. So that does make sense too. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Oh yeah. So whenever I come back to the chat after meeting Wandering Library, sees Raphie recruited and begins to tell Raphie the truth. So do you think NSA, I know you said you wanted NSA to to be cut off and stop telling me things by you the second time we meet, but I think it would even be better if we do it the first time. So I think we should keep that there. Does that sound good?
Does what sound good, sorry?
So if we keep, so in the third scene, so maybe the third or fourth scene, so it'd be I join the chat, I get a call, then I join the chat again. The third time I join the chat again, it'll be when I meet NSA. So do you want NSA to start telling me the truth and then you join and cut him off in that interaction, our first interaction? Because I think it would work there.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So then the night drags on and Raphie knows Shogun is acting odd, and after he leaves, Raphie tries to gain some support from other members in the chat about how weird the events in the server are. So I then, try to get some people to back me up and like tell me that I'm not crazy, but then I just get thrown in the dungeon. So in the dungeon, Raphie is told to follow the rules that he didn't break, and he's let in the next day. So 2A, so this is the beginning of the second act. So world building and tension scenes when Raphie comes back to complete Twilight Speak from every single member and the general chat. The gaslighting builds up to a breaking point. I think that would be a really cool scene to film if we have 15 people in the chat. All of them are like going on and on about like gaslighting and like Twilight Speaking stuff. And then the whole general chat is like typing, all of these people typing, and all of it is also Twilight Speak. That would be super cool. Do you think like we could do that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but I think that would be dope. So yeah. You have anything about that?
No.
Okay. So that's good. So a world building and tension scene when Raphie comes back to complete Twilight Speak from every single member in the general chat. The gaslighting builds up to a breaking point. At the peak, Raphie gets a message from Ashley. Okay, so at the peak of the gaslighting and the tension and stuff, whenever I come back from being in the dungeon, this is when the Ashley character calls me. So this has been, you have gotten the notification that I have been acting sus. Then you end up giving Ashley to me. So all the Twilight Speak is to get me as tense as possible, to make me scared, nervous, and like susceptible, so that as soon as Ashley calls me, then I'll be like completely at bay to whatever she wants. So then they call, she flirts with him, the comfort Raphie accepts, and then they can... Oh, then like my character accepts to be their like boyfriend and girlfriend because out of that like terror and out of like that pressure, that like psychological pressure. So that call calms everything down. The Twilight Speak calms down. I joined next day. Raphie shares. Okay, so then I wanted to have an ET experience in another lore building scene after I call with Ashley. So I wanted a scene wherever I have like an ET encounter, and then I end up going and talking to Raphie shares the experience with NSA, but then Tech joins. So yeah, I want to share an ET experience to NSA, and then we do some more bonding, but then Tech joins, and then everybody goes quiet, and then he leaves, and then like I'm like, what was that? And then everyone tells us the Tech lore. So this would be a good place for you to jump in and say, like, what do you think the specific, all the lore about Tech should be that we mentioned in the movie?
Well, I mean, people say that Tech is an artificial intelligence. Some people say that Tech created Discord. People think he's a, Fed or spook, meaning CIA agent. I know that he says that when he's listening to the chat, which he doesn't do that much anymore, but he used to do it all the time, there's a quote unquote team of other guys with him. So it's not just him, it's like a group of people. And I don't know if it's supposed to be a secret or not, probably not, but he's a former military police. I know that. So those are just some things. And then people will say, oh yeah, he's the power behind the throne, or he's the secret, he's the guy who runs things behind the scenes.
Do you want to make like a is it Alice in Wonderland? No, it's Wizard of Oz. Let's make a direct Wizard of Oz like reference in that as well.
Sure, I don't necessarily get the reference. I mean, I know there's like the man behind the curtain, but
yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think that metaphor is a little confused though, because the long and short of that is like he ends up just being like, this little insignificant goofball behind the curtain. So the whole man behind the curtain thing is a different concept than what I'm talking about.
Okay, yeah, that's okay then. Sounds good. So, okay, then you announce a server event, and this is when you have like a manic, egoic, genius kind of revelatory sort of whatever. So then you announce a server meeting and come on in like a breakdown. And then joining Shogun's event, everyone's behind his teachings and tells people to get excited for the upcoming Church of Camelot meeting. And yeah, so in that scene, the scene where you have a dualistic genius and manic breakdown and people are compelled and repelled by it, what do you want to have happen in that scene?
Well, again, just using real life as a model for it, I'd probably be drunk. Grandiose, talking up the server in really grandiose but accurate terms. Possibly somewhat angry or volatile at a point if someone interrupts or something. Maybe like heavy-handed, like shut up, like shut the fuck up, like mute somebody or whatever. Just being like a little bit heavy-handed, just trying to show that this is potentially like a somewhat unstable. Just showing some hints of like, what people might call like a tyrannical or megalomaniacal aspects, but also, doing a good staff meeting, pumping up the server, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, these will be some of the harder acting parts. But, I think I can more or less improvise it just based on as though I was really doing it more or less. But yeah, that's basically it. I don't know. And
I also kind of think that'll be the the best parts for the cast to have fun. The Camelot church scene and this scene, I think, will be the most people in voice chat being able to say whatever they want. The other voice chat scenes potentially a little bit, but these will be a nice one to flex. Like everyone gets like a line, anyone can say whatever they want. This will be like 10 minutes long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna have a blunt rip.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not firing on all mental cylinders right now, but hopefully it's still helping you to elaborate it a bit.
You pour those on your hand, please. Okay. I think we're actually. I know you're not firing on all cylinders. I'm doing pretty well here. I think we are actually doing a good enough job here. As long as these opinions are your opinions, then we should be able to get a pretty concise script out of what we have here. So yeah. I announced the server, then there's the breakdown. So then Raphie calls Ashley. Okay, so then I was thinking after you have your breakdown thing, I call Ashley to talk about my experiences. But Ashley reassures me. So I try to talk about the weird shit to her, and she kind of pushes it aside because she's like, we can't really talk about it yet unless you're going to join. I can't really tell you anything, you know what I mean? But like, she's not really saying that. So Raphie calls Ashley and tries to talk about his experiences, but Ashley reassures him and they start flirting. And by the end of the scene, they genuinely seem interested in each other. And then she kind of has a moment where she's saying how great the server is and how there is something secret there. And it's kind of like a look at the camera moment where she's talking to my character. Then there'll be a world building VC scene where it's the payoff for the gang stalking with NSA and everything. So it'll be like a final moment of the gang stalking thing where like you guys maybe come out and like say, okay, the gang stalking is off or whatever. Like you might be able to do that. I don't know. Or I just talk about it, or it's like something else. I also want to introduce the Satanists and pay off the Satanists in the next scene. But then I also want us to like stay in that VC for a little while. The VC becomes like a little bit like less crowded. It's just like me, you, and a couple people left in the room. And then with very shady overtones, you rank me up and ask me record the podcasts, which the first one will be the Church of Camelot meeting that's coming up. So that kind of works. So then there's the Satanist payoff and another voice chat where I'm like, yo, I almost got like jumped. These guys came out of a black van with a robe and I had to hide in a bush until I got a bus back to my house. I'm terrified. What was that? And it's like, oh shit, that's the same shit that was happening to this guy. You've got to like put salt on your windows or whatever, right? So then after that, we'll have the Doomsday Cult meeting. Did you have something you want to say about that?
No.
All right. So then we'll have the Doomsday Cult meeting, and you went into the Doomsday Cult meeting in a lot of detail. I'll go over a bit of what I wrote down for it. It was the most that I actually got out of our past podcast, I think. So at the end of an end times biblical doomsday cult based on the Church of Camelot's second level of the cult, which is an inner circle in the server that has connections to intelligence, law enforcement, aliens, gang stalking, influencers, suggest / imply as much as possible, but be as unclear as possible. Get the audience asking what it is and how large the roundtable's audience and reach actually is. It's something big, important, serious, scary, seductive. It's a conspiracy radio drama that makes people have conspiracies about it. Never-ending presentation of possibilities that get elaborated on through different meetings. Ambiguity is key, and the cult is proven real by the multiple interactions with members and mods because of the behavior of the characters in relation to Raphie. That is where the menace and mystery comes in. The cult is real because at the end, Raphie also is asked to join and ends up doing so doing what is expected of a cult member. So that's all of around the Doomsday Cult, and I know you have some ideas of how you want to plan it. So if there's anything else you want to get out on this podcast about it, we can do that now.
Well, when you say the Doomsday Cult, you're talking about the Church of Camelot scene?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's just going to be like a fire and brimstone church service in the style of the Church of Camelot, but drawing on the most like hallucinogenic, delirious, psychedelic, frightening, and sinister parts of the Bible. And at this point, basically, we'll try and have it sort of show that like, basically, we should sort of try and make it so that each time you interact with Shogun, like the first time you meet me, I'm like really friendly and charming, like, you know, make a good first impression on people, and then welcoming you to the server, moderating the chat, and like, you know, as this like confident, capable, respected leader. And then, you know, the second time you see me, I'm like, you sense that something's off because of the way that like NSA changes the way he's talking. And I guess before that, there's already been some kind of warning with like my interaction with Wandering Library. But the point is, then when it comes to the server meeting, that's when you'll see me like drunk, maybe a little bit grandiose, maybe narcissistic type, language or something, and volatile, angry, more unstable, but still like just in the realm of like what you might think are just sort of like drunk or personality flaws, but nothing necessarily more than that. And then by the time it goes to like the Church of Camelot, I should basically be trying to play as though I've now sort of gone into like a hypomanic or manic episode and I'm becoming like delusional. But because I'm like a good orator and I'm really good at like quoting and remembering the Bible and charismatic and so forth, people are essentially, buying into this delusionality and like actually, buying into it, right? They're coming along with me on this grandiose psychosis or whatever. At least the inner circle members are, and like some of them are to different degrees, but at least some people are like totally buying into this and like whatever. So this is where it's like, whoa, this isn't like a normal server related thing. This is like, it's like an actual cult meeting happening on Discord, right? And again, it'll be sort of like inspired by characters like Jim Jones and David Koresh, famous Christian theology based cult leaders.
Sweet. So then after the cult meeting, I'm going to ask NSA what that was about in a public VC, and then I'm going to get moved down to, maybe, I'm not really sure, but I'm going to ask NSA what that was about. He's going to try to give me his answer about what is happening, and then I'm going to get moved to a private mod VC. The private mod VC happens, and that depends on who is actually there to do it. I believe I have more notes on my... Okay, bro. I don't have a lot of notes on the private mod voice. I have a little bit, right? Where is it?
We haven't laid it out too much because again, it depends on who we cast. But it sounds like we'll probably have like maybe Hermes. I think Crimson would be good. Crimson, Hermes, possibly Rokumu might be an interesting addition to that.
Ooh, and I probably want Kasheka too.
Kasheka would be a good choice as well. Yeah, that works.
So what I have here for the private mod chat is dependent on which mods will be involved. They'll all have a different angle. If it's psychological manipulation, it'll be attempting to mind control me. There'll be a good cop, a sneaky cop, a controlling cop, and a threatening cop. Kasheka could be the good cop, Crimson as well as the manipulative person. Yeah. So Crimson and did you say Crimson or did you say you said Crimson, Hermes, Rokumo, and Kasheka, right?
Just as a concept, yeah. Could do it with other people too. Like Dawson would be pretty good as well.
Yeah. We could use Dawson instead of Rokumo.
Yeah.
Or we could do all 5 of them.
The casting we can figure out later, but again, depending on which 4 people we use is going to determine how the scene is written about.
Okay, that sounds good. So then there's the private mod VC. After the private VC Ashley calls him to recruit him. Yeah, so I basically get called by Ashley in the private mod VC, and I'm like, I'm getting a call, and they're like, answer it. You know what I mean? And then I kind of answer, and I kind of just freak out and tell Ashley, like, Ashley, all this stuff is happening. Everything's going on. There's aliens. There's gang stalkings. There's Satanists. There's people telling me shit. Wandering Library said this shit. Shogun saying this shit. I don't know what's happening. Everything's all over the place. And she's like, yeah, like, I'm here to recruit you, and I still like you, but, you've really ought to join because I've seen what happens when you don't. And so I'm like, oh my God, even you are against it. What the fuck? And I like return to NSA, who's in the voice chat. And I'm like, NSA, like, what is happening? Like, they want me to join this, like, blah, blah, blah. And he's like begging me not to sell out. And then like Shogun joins the chat, and maybe Shogun, you move me again, or maybe like, and everybody leaves or something ominous. Like you join the chat and like 5 people leave and nobody joins, and it's just me and you. And you're like, you've got to join. Like, what is your decision? Like, Ashley's laid it all out for you. And then fade to black, and then fade back into me introducing a new member and then me joking with Ashley and you and like NSA and we're all having a good time or whatever. And then that's the end. And then there's the alien ending that mocks a sequel.
Yeah, and there'll be other things added in at different points. So the references to the early encounters with Satanists, intelligence agencies, alien sightings. I have like a whole like alien narrative that I want to work in with you, which actually I won't say any more about what I was going to say because it's a spoiler for something else. But basically, yeah, so I kind of want to, I don't introduce the alien thing all at once. So I want to do like a slow build of it, where your character has like a series of alien related encounters that start out ambiguous or subtle and eventually become like full blown, like crazy. So in other words, like there should be one point where you have like a UFO sighting before you later get like, I don't know, like, I guess like the UFO sighting could be the entirety of it. That could be like the big contact you have is just a really crazy UFO sighting, which could be filmed in video and maybe might be a place where we actually use some kind of CGI or effect. But alternatively, there might be more to it than that, like actually somehow contacting or being seen or seen by seeing an alien, gray alien, or maybe having some kind of sleep paralysis abduction type experience. I think I like that. Yeah. So what I'd like to do is have a threefold part where, you know, you hear about aliens on the server, you talk to NSA, then you have like a UFO sighting, but maybe it's like in the distance or ambiguous. And then later you have like a sleep paralysis, and maybe like see grays, and then later there's like a really dramatic, you know what I mean? So it's going to be like a dramatic UFO sighting, or maybe reverse the order of those last two. But I want it to like happen in a series of stages, because otherwise it's just like, oh, and then there's a crazy UFO. Like it'd be cooler if it like builds up to it, basically.
Yeah, we could do that. Do you have any more details of how you want to implicate that into the script we already have?
Well, if we do that, then, you know, again, it mostly is just going to be in the form of your character talking to the people in the voice chat and describing experiences that he had outside of the voice chat, unless it's happening in real time while he's in the voice chat. So you could just be in the middle of some conversation and be like established earlier that you're out walking or jogging or whatever, walking a dog or something. And then like at a point when everything is kind of like just about some other interesting but not plot specific thing, you're like, whoa, holy shit, what's that? And then people are like, what? And you're like, wait 1 second. And then like, you know, goes quiet and you're like, oh my God, like, what is this? Like, I got to get closer. Like, in other words, you just voice act that you're having this encounter, and then maybe you have pictures you can post, or maybe there's a video. But
oh my God, it'd be way easier to just upload pictures to, I can make some super realistic like pictures of UFOs and aliens and stuff, and like we can upload those to general and then use that. That'd be way easier than video. I think Iris has something she wants to say. This is recorded, so.
Oh, well, just if you did want to do video, you could have like your like phone camera like in the woods and be like, oh, I'm just gonna walk outside, something like a quick clip or something. And then you could like post it into like the chat or something and have it immediately get deleted. And then like try to like talk to people, get deleted, and like put in the dungeon like while this is happening or something, and get like no contact, have something weird happen, and then like come back the next day and be like, what the fuck? And it's just like brushed off, you get distracted.
That's not bad. Do you think the first ET interaction should be when I get thrown in the dungeon at the beginning?
No, I think that should still be for asking questions about the conversation with Wandering Library, because that's necessary to establish that what he was saying is being covered up and that there is some kind of like censorship happening. But I agree with Iris. That's a good idea. That another way we can introduce that censorship narrative, and you know that these things are being covered up in some senses by having some kind of cover up of your experience, the pictures and stuff being deleted. The only reason that doesn't make sense, though, is because, I mean, the Roundtable is a conspiracy theory server, so censoring like alien-related shit isn't really our MO. I like the idea, but it doesn't quite work because the censorship
Oh shit! This is something else I wanted to talk about. Well, that connects it to the gang stalking stuff, right? So it would be like the aliens are taking it down with technological means. But I also wanted to see. So we have aliens, we have gang stalkers, and we have Satanists, and we also have the internal cult in the round table. So how do all four of those elements flow together, and where do they connect?
Which four elements?
The elements of the gang stalkers, the Satanists, the aliens, and the internal cult. So how do all four of those elements flow together, and where do they connect? Like, where do the aliens come into the cult? Where do the intelligence agencies come into the cult? Where did the cult come into the aliens? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, again, from the plot, from your protagonist's point of view, and for the audience, I don't think they should know that, right? Because the whole MO of the film is throwing as many related and interesting concepts and actors onto the stage as possible, and making it clear that they're all real and they're not just in the narrative of the server, but that they're actually like impacting on the protagonist's real life. So he is getting gang stalked. He gets chased or followed by Satanists. Some kind of intelligence agent makes contact, or taps his phone or whatever, turns on his light on his camera, whatever. So the only way it all ties together is that it's all mentioned by different people in their specific narratives about conspiracy theories and about the server. The protagonist encounters these things, or at least believes that he's encountering these things in his real life. And the only thing that ties it together is that you hear about it first in the round table. It's all explicitly mentioned by different people as being connected to the round table. And then you encounter it in your life. But again, we explicitly do not want to explain anything, right? Because it's all based on theories, intrigue, mystery, suggestion, illusion, oblique narratives, etc. So it's just like the server, right? Everybody has their theories, but nobody really knows the truth. And we don't want the film to leave people with any answers. We just want it to leave people with a bunch of questions, and then a sense of like mystery and like a desire to know more, which also sets up sequels if we want to do that.
All right. Let me just give a once over to my notes here, see if there's any stuff I should ask you. We got most of this. What happened when Raphie joins the private call? We're gonna have to work that on the day. Do we talk about this directly last time? What happens to Wandering Library? We know what happens to Wandering Library. Okay, hold on. Here's a couple things I should be able to ask you. So the whole movie is basically the story of the movie is me slowly being indoctrinated into a cult and ultimately joining, right? That is basically the plot without any plot.
I would say yes, but I would say that's only half of it. The other half of it is you are being slowly initiated into the multiple levels of rabbit holes of conspiracy theories, right? So the cult aspect is the narrative arc of your character within the server, but his actual experience is more about trying to make sense of the world around him, both in the broad sense of the wider world that we talk about here, and the narrower sense of your world in the server. So it's very much, so yes, the narrative arc is about your character being scouted, indoctrinated, and recruited into a cult that exists within the server, it's called Inner Circle, whatever you want to call it. But the main driving arc is all about using your character as a, naive and relatively ignorant person going through initiation into these various schools of thinking that are new to people who aren't part of the server, such as occultism, intelligence agencies, conspiracy theories. So what we're trying to do is walk your character through as many rabbit holes, down as many rabbit holes of conspiracy theory as possible, have him take as many red pills as possible. So the cult thing is a necessary narrative structure to the story to give the protagonist's journey a discrete meaning and to have that, powerful ending at the end. But really, we're just using him as a useful tool to walk through the movie. And actually, you could represent this his beginning is the tarot card, the Fool, where the guy's stepping off the cliff and the dog's trying to bite his ankle, and the number is 0. So we should conceive of Raphie beginning as the Fool tarot card and ultimately ending as the Magician tarot card. That's just another level of, thematic concept that just occurred to me. I believe the Magician. Maybe there's another one that represents his end point. But in other words, he's starting as a blank slate. We're using him as a blank slate to represent someone who has no idea what the round table is and has no experience in conspiracy theories. By the time the movie ends, they've become invested in your character and they've enjoyed this plot. But what's really happened is we've used this movie to sneakily expose them to all of our crazy ideas, as well as to advertise our server as a very unique place where those kind of things are discussed.
I agree. All right. I think this is a good place to put a pin in it. I think,
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was a little bit slow in the brain today, but we still got a lot done.
No, yeah, for sure. It was solid. So I'm going to do a bit of work with Iris on my spare time here to figure out the best way to actually film this stuff. And the next thing I want to do is just do a little mock run through of me like hopping in voice chat, talking to some people, getting a private call, going to the private call, getting moved around. Like I want to do some stuff like that with a couple people just to test it out. That'll be the next step.
Sounds great. Well, that concludes then our third brainstorming, script writing, and storyboarding session. We have made a lot of progress. There's quite a lot of interest building up for the program, the project, and I'm happy that you're working on it. So if there's anything else you need from me, just let me know. But, sounds like you know what you need to do.
Yeah, we got a filmer. All right. Thank you for having me on.
Okay, thanks. Thank you to the audience. Please join us on the Roundtable Discord server. We record podcasts every day at 8 p.m. Central, as well as other times. Check announcements for upcoming events, and make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. We have hundreds of great podcasts, special events, interviews, and debates in video and audio format on YouTube and BitChute. Check out all our channels. They are all unique. Check out our web store even. We have great shirts and hoodies. That being said, we will see you again in 5 hours for Mr. Hughes' very interesting podcast coming up tonight about, well, fairies and magic and all kinds of cool stuff. So, thanks a lot. God bless.
God bless.
Hello, Drew. We just finished a little recording, so we're just going to jump back up to the pub, I guess, if you want to join us there.